Hello, hello. And on this brief episode, I wanted to talk about I have my Ascension Oracle V LLC business launching here very soon. And as such, I wanted to do this podcast to essentially talk about the basics. So, what is Ascension? I think a lot of times people think of Ascension when you hear ascension, it's like this big scary word, but the basic fundamentals of it would be kind of going through this spiritual awakening process. And I feel like spiritual awakening is a term that people are very familiar with at this point in time, at this day and age, at May 7th, 2024, right? So, but for those who are not aware of the spiritual awakening process, it's essentially kind of when you go through uh, breaking out of the matrix, so to speak, where you start realizing, hey, there's more to this life thing than just wake up, eat, sleep, go to work, repeat, rinse, repeat cycle on this kind of zombie mode, autopilot type of existence. There's much more to life than this. There's a bigger picture. There's a universal consciousness, so to speak. There is a divine God source universe. And there are a lot of people, again, who don't believe in a particular religion, and that's fine, but you can still experience a spiritual awakening without having a set religion. However, a lot of people experience their spiritual awakenings through some kind of very traumatic, unfathomable, unwanted, unwanted traumatic event. Usually, it's it's a situation where um, you went through kind of maybe a heartbreak, a death in the family, a death with somebody close to you, and it it challenged you. It sent you into a state of shock, essentially, in the mental way of looking at it. It sends your mind into a state of shock, into a state of awakening, where this trauma has shifted your consciousness to being able to see life differently, to being able to experience life in a way that you hadn't before. Sometimes people, I know personally, when I went through my spiritual awakening, it was again because I had a near death experience. I did die, I had to be resuscitated, but this is what I mean. It's a process that comes about through some really traumatic, painful things. People think that you have to be very religious. You are going into, churches every Sunday in order to be spiritual, and that's not the case. I'm not here to be preaching on anybody's religion, but I am here to tell you that if you are experiencing some things, like you're going through a process every day thinking, I don't know what's going on with me. I'm seeing a lot of synchronicities. I'm seeing, you know, I'm having clairvoyant episodes, whatever the case may be. I'm trying to say this in the most politically correct way ever, but sometimes there are things that we experience in life that a doctor can't explain to you, your pastor can't explain to you, and you have no choice but to surrender and say, I surrender. I don't know what to do. I don't know what's happening. And in that moment, in those quiet moments when you are going through pain, when you are going through suffering, when you are going through trauma, when you're going through something, again, unfathomable, something you'd rather not be going through, you can then hear the divine talking to you. And I I hear people tell me frequently that they will never forget that first time that they heard the voice of the divine. And you don't. It's something that you don't forget. It's something that you experience and it shakes you to your core. It awakens you, which is why we call this a spiritual awakening. The the first part though is getting to that point where you just surrender, and it's usually because you're hitting up against that dead end. You are at rock bottom. Now rock bottom can be an endless, a bottomless pit, really it can be, but you have hit like Mariana Trench of the abysses at this point when you start surrendering, and then everything else flows after that. Like there is no stopping the spiritual awakening. uh there really isn't. And once you have gone through the surrendering process, then there is the shadow work process, where again you start stripping away the mask. You start looking at yourself, questioning everything. Like, have I always been like this? Did I always dress like this? Did I always talk like this? Have I always felt this way? Things that you, again, because you were living on this autopilot of rinse, repeat, get up, do the same thing, just zombie mode. A lot of times we can overlook some not so great things. And again, this can kind of be one of those situations where you don't feel so great, which is also why it's called shadow work, because it's kind of dark. It's kind of we also call it kind of the dark night of the soul. But shadow work is something that people try to avoid frequently from not doing, because it's not a pleasant process. You have to be willing to go within and really look at yourself through the eyes of the divine for who you really are authentically, and kind of clean out your closet, so to speak, and really process everything that you're seeing, process those emotions that you've carpet swept, process the pain, the traumas, all the emotional baggage that you have carpet swept, you didn't want to look at for however long you've been kind of asleep, right? Unawakened. And then once you get through that shadow work process, you begin your process of rediscovery. You begin your process of knowing who you really are. Who am I? Why do I do the way do why do I do the things that I do? All the things. It's a process. The rose colored glasses kind of start to come off at this point, and again also can be kind of like ugh, ugh. But it's just part of it. And there's so much more to go on with this, but I just am jumping out here and just doing it. And I know this has been crazy, there's a lot going on, but I will, in future podcast episodes, go into more detail on what the process of ascension looks like. I was featured in an app called Uptime, and they do these short story hacks. It's what they call them, hacks. And my first hack that they featured me on was the process of surrendering. So if you are interested in that, that would be a good one to kind of segue you into this as well, if you are interested. But with that, I will leave everything here and pick back up on a future episode you can look forward to. And this little one will will lead you guys off. Say bye. Sorry for distracting her. Take care. B Squad.